Hello everyone! I thought that today we would take a look at the Space Wolves with their newest release upcoming. It seemed like a great time to take a look at what's changed, what's upcoming, what's different, and take a look at all of that through the lens of a hobbyist and someone who paints but doesn't really get to play very often. So let's start with Blood Claws. They're a great place to start since they are where the aspirants tend to start anyway. The new models look pretty good actually. I don't have a ton of complaints about them based on the few pictures I've been able to see so far. As far as they go, this is more than perfectly serviceable. It's fun to see some of the older armor styles make guest appearances, and the pauldron without trim gives a very different look to the Marines. Blood Claws, as their role implies, as the beginning of the pack, is a very interesting set of models. It's hard to find a great way to show youth and inexperience from a modeling perspective, but it's not so hard to show jumping forward into battle with no regard for themselves and often not even wearing helmets. So, they're a great model to play with. They have the red and yellow scheme, and for me at least, having the pack markings match has always been super important. And speaking of pack markings, since we're on that topic, let's talk about that for a little bit. Unlike other chapters, pack markings hold a really important place within the Space Wolf tradition. Now, if you're going to play Space Wolves, you might as well go all out and do the pack markings and do all the lore represented that you can, because otherwise, what is the point? So, starting with Blood Claws, and they're yellow and red, because they're the newest of the group. Whenever you're doing pack markings, usually there are simplistic geometric shapes, simple triangles, half colors, simple things like that. It doesn't have to be complicated, it just needs to have a splash of this color, and it really adds something to the army. And while the traditional yellow and black wolf symbol is actually Ragnar Blackmane's symbol, it still works really well for the coloration of the Space Wolves, whether you're going with the light baby blue or you're going with the traditional darker gray or shadow gray. These bright spots of color really help bring attention to your models. So when you're doing it, I'd also recommend that you pick other panels, kneecaps, places on the Marine and add them there as well. Space Wolves are another famous chapter for having individualized armor, and this really helps bring them to life. And regardless of which color scheme you've chosen, these little pops of bright colors always make it look better. That'll take us right into Grey Hunters. Now, these guys make up the bulk of most Space Wolf Space Marine forces. They kind of fill every role, and ever since the Primaris edition, their defined roles have gotten a little murky, frankly. Unfortunately, the way that it used to be was that Long Fangs were your older, more seasoned Space Wolves, and they would take up the heavy weapon roles. But with the way that Primaris is, both in the fact that all of them are essentially the same age or similar, and the fact that they don't have traditional Long Fang style squads, we've kind of had to work out where these packs line up ourselves. While they've kind of answered this, I think it's a piss poor answer. So if you're asking me, I think that most of your basic assault troops that aren't specifically Blood Claws should all be Grey Hunters, and most of your non-heavy weapons should all be your Long Fangs. I would argue that Infernus Marines should be Long Fangs, or maybe even Blood Claws, as Flamer seems like a very Blood Claw kind of weapon. But your heavy weapon teams that are in the Gravis armor could all be your Long Fangs. At least that's my plan once I realized I can't use my heavy missile launcher that I made with a Long Fang to test the color scheme. Because the Grey Hunters represent a little bit of everything, you can put them in everything, and they all represent seasoned, trained Marines, so it's easy to have them fill whatever role it happens to be that you need at that particular moment. They're a great color scheme, with the black and red being very striking, especially opposed to the yellow, and to be honest, they're an easy squad to work with a lot of options. So Wolfguard. Now, Wolfguard are fun because Wolfguard fill almost every role Space Wolves have that isn't covered by anything else specifically. They are yellow and black, making them very striking as far as their paint schemes go, but they fill the role of sergeants, leaders, elite guard, terminators, and really even lords and battle heroes. Sometimes you'll see them filling these roles in one fashion or another. The new head takers appear to be the Space Wolf take on Blade Guard, which is fitting, I think. And of course, we have the new Terminators, which all carry the yellow and black, as Terminator honors are restricted mostly to veterans. They provide a great opportunity to have custom war gear, custom-made everything, and to really spice up your army. With the yellow and black being such a striking color, any set of their armor panels that you change to add this to will instantly make your miniature pop. You can also have them listed as leaders, usually taking on a black and silver instead of yellow. And so we're on to Long Fangs. Now, this one's a bit tricky just because Long Fangs don't have great clear roles inside of the current Primaris era, mostly because, as I mentioned, Long Fangs tend to be older, more experienced, further along the Canis track Marines. And we don't really have that with Primaris at the moment. So for me, moving forward, what I will likely do is all of my Gravis heavy weapons will all be my Long Fangs, and I will likely have anyone that can be seen in a vehicle also be a Long Fang. I may make some exceptions to do things like Hellblasters, which I don't think are in Gravis armor, or specialty heavy weapons like that as Long Fangs as well. The striking white and black color scheme for them really helps them stand out, even in this new era, and I cannot recommend enough that where you can find a reason to use it that makes sense to use it. Also, Long Fangs tend not to wear helmets. It's not a rule, but it is a thing. Now we are on to the Scout Company. While I am aware that Phobos Marines and Scouts and the Sons of Mordecai are not the same, as far as I am concerned, they are all exactly the same. I cannot imagine a scenario where I would field a Scout unit with the Scout sculpts and not just use the Phobos sculpts instead. It just seems silly to me. This is your stealth, high-end, elite, super specialized Long Fangs who decided not to become heavy weapon specialists, essentially. They've always been a very unique unit for Space Wolves. They're usually very few in number because they're old and well trained, but they're a lot of fun and you can do a lot with them from a hobbyist perspective. Though this is usually the one time I try not to have my Space Wolves be brightly colored and quickly eye-catching, simply because of what Scouts normally do. So, with all that said, let's take a look at the new leader models and characters that have been announced so far. So, let's start with the old man himself, Logan Grimnar, who is a hero who has been told many, many fantastic stories throughout the time that Games Workshop has been working on this character. This new model I heard best described as an old biker meth head. And while that sounds derogatory, and I can see why people might feel that way, it is such a fantastic description of the oldest Viking in the group. It is a fantastic new sculpt, and I hope that it sells well so we get more. We have Arjak, who is arguably one of my favorite characters just because of the Thorness of him, and I am so happy to see this sculpt. I never got a chance to get the old Arjak sculpt, and this one in the new size, it clicks all the buttons for me and makes me incredibly happy. The Stormcaller is back and he looks amazing. This is such a fun pose with the little bird flying off to the side, defiantly standing with his staff, especially after the bizarre last couple of iterations he's had. This feels proper. And our new Wolf Priest, who is not a replacement for Ulrich, but is still fantastic. Wolf Priest being one of the very few units that have a deviation in color scheme standard, being both an apothecary and a chaplain, this just screams cool. So those are just some of my initial thoughts regarding the new Space Wolf stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you like this kind of content, let me know and I'll consider doing more of it. Like and subscribe.